Welcome. My name is Father Mark Toops, a priest of the Diocese of Houma-Thibodaux, welcoming you into a conversation together as we together ask, what is it that God is doing in our diocese through plans of hope, the strategic plan that He has given us, which we have received from Him, a strategic plan for the Diocese of Houma-Thibodaux. Perhaps you have heard that our diocese is undergoing some strategic planning. Perhaps you yourself participated in aspects of the developing of the plan. Or perhaps you're a parishioner in the pew with great anticipation of what God is going to do in your life and in your parish, and you're asking yourself a little bit more about the strategic plan. Whatever the questions are that led you to our conversation today, I want to say welcome. And as we begin, I first want to say that what we're talking about today is really a movement of God. We received all of this from the Lord Himself. God is the one who's been leading us. God is the one who will continue to lead us. And it is with great thanksgiving in my heart that I welcome you into a conversation about what God is doing. And the story of what God is doing, we're going to tell today in 6 different chapters. The first chapter, why is it that we started a planning process? Why is it that God led Bishop Fob to initiate a planning process in the diocese? That's chapter 1. Chapter 2 will be how is it that we conceived the fundamental aspects of the plan, and how is it that we received, you might say, the direction that God wanted to take us. Chapter 3 will be how we're tailoring the plan to the individual parishes and therefore implementing the plan in that tailored approach in the individual parishes. And then finally, we'll round out how we're supporting the plan so that we can succeed in what God has given us. And finally, summarizing the heart of the plan, which is, of course, the renewal of parish life, and which is really where we're going to impact a lot of people's lives. I want to say welcome. It's great as we tell you this story about what God is doing in our diocese. The first part for us to understand what God is doing in our diocese is to understand why is it that we began the process of strategic planning to begin with. And I want to start the conversation welcoming you today as we ask, why is it that we have a plan to begin with? And for that, we not only start with the inspiration of God, but the very heart that He inspired initially, which was our bishop, Bishop Shelton Fob. Bishop Fob joined our diocese in 2013, and as he joined our diocese, he did what he does best, which is be with people and listen to people and get to know people. His Episcopal motto is comfort my people, and what Bishop Fob brought to our diocese was a heart that longs to comfort his people. And part of comforting his people is listening to his people. And I have enjoyed listening to Bishop Fob tell the stories of how he had a great longing to just get to know the people of our diocese and to listen to the people of our diocese. In those early months in 2013, all the way into the early months of 2014, Bishop Fob did just that. He just got to know the people of our diocese. He listened to their hearts. He entered into conversation. He took time to be with people. And as he listened to people, he noticed that God was already doing some amazing things. We stand on the shoulders of generations before us who have passed on the faith generation to generation. We stand on the shoulders of other bishops who preceded him, who have done great work in listening to God and passing on the faith. The first thing that Bishop Fob will tell you himself, the first thing that he noticed was that God was doing great things already in the lives of people. But he also recognized that amidst all of the beautiful work that was there, even more could happen if we were postured to receive that in what he described as a culture of planning. Not just simply standing back and allowing the Lord to speak to us, but providing a structure so that we were more able to hear God and more able to receive what God wanted for us. A structure of planning in our parishes, a structure of planning in our own pastoral center. From his office all the way down to the offices in our parishes. He wanted a culture of planning so that we were always listening to people. We were always listening to the Lord. We were always researching how we can best respond to the needs of the people in the pew. A culture of planning where we're always equipped to implement the things that God has given to us, has He entrusted to us. This culture of planning, which Bishop Fobb tasted in other aspects of his history as a priest, was something that he carried in his heart, that the Lord lifted up in his heart, and that led him to begin asking questions, not only about the good things that were happening in our diocese, but the great things that could happen in our diocese if we just committed ourselves to a culture, a discipline, a process of planning. As Bishop Fobb surveyed our diocese, he came to see the beauty of our parishes. He saw the rich history of our parishes. He saw the unique personalities of all of our parishes. And what he began to carry in his heart was a desire for the renewal of our parishes. Every one of our parishes stands, you might say, on the edge of possibilities of what God could do. But there's no renewal of the church without the renewal of the parish. That's where we live with each other. It's where we go to school. It's where we stand shoulder to shoulder. It's where we celebrate life. It's where we support each other in tragedy. It's where we celebrate the sacraments week in, week out. It's where we live together. Bishop Fobb knew in his heart, as a pastor himself, that if there's going to be renewal in the church and renewal of a diocese, there needs to be renewal of parish life. And as Bishop Fobb joined our diocese, he understood that a diocese is merely a collection of parishes. It's all of us together. The diocese per se is not a building on Highway 311 or a set of administrative policies. The diocese isn't some outside force that tells us what we can or cannot do. You're the diocese, I'm the diocese, all of us together, disciples walking on the road together. All of us together are the Diocese of Houma-Thibodaux. And as we most naturally in the Catholic Church live and pray and support each other in the parishes, he understood that it's the renewal of parish life that the Lord was lifting up as the center of what could be affected by this culture of planning within his own desire to comfort his people. What led us into a conversation of strategic planning was Bishop Fobb's heart and his leadership, his desire for a culture of planning, and the emergence, the centrality, you might say, of the renewal of parish life as that which could be impacted if we would come together, join our hearts and our efforts in a strategic planning process. So I want to welcome you now into our conversation about how is it that we received the plan from the Lord, or how is it that we conceived the strategic plan, plans of hope, as we received it from God. What was a process that we went through for that? And that's a great story. The story starts with listening sessions. I shared with you earlier that as Bishop Fobb arrived in our diocese in 2013, the first thing he wanted to do is listen to the people that had been entrusted to him. And that was not just something that he did on a formal basis in getting to know each other. He took that one step further in listening, not only to the people in the pew, but listening to the priest that he was going to stand shoulder to shoulder with as he began to shepherd our diocese. What unfolded, you might say, as the first step along the way were formal listening sessions as Bishop Fobb began to listen to his priests and the people in the pew. For 12 months, Bishop Fobb listened to his priests. There were one-on-one gatherings getting to know each other. There were small lunches that we had together. There were large gatherings of the entire presbyterate, all the priests together, back to one-on-one, back to lunches, back to the large group gatherings. Over an entire year, Bishop Fobb invested in relationship with his priests. And many people have asked, why is it that the planning process has taken so long? And that's because we were in no rush along the way. The process was more important, you might say, than the plan itself. How we got to receive the plan was really important to Bishop Fobb. And listening to the priests was an essential part of the process. There was the initial one-on-one gatherings where he got to know them and they got to know him. There were lunches where they arrived at the bishop's house and he asked them 3 questions. First question, what's the best thing about the diocese? Number 2, what are your dreams for the diocese? And number 3, what are your concerns that need to be addressed as we move forward together? A lot came to the surface as he listened to his priest over a 12-month period. And it was not only the priest that he wanted to listen to, but he took another 6 months after that to intentionally go across the diocese and listen to the laity, listen to our lay leaders, listen to the people in the pew. Systematically and very intentionally organized throughout the diocese in regions hosted in parishes, Bishop Fobb listened to the people of our diocese. There were large gatherings in churches. There were small lunch gatherings at the pastoral center. Some of those conversations happened one-on-one. Some of those conversations happened at his house as he listened to people. Over an entire 6-month period, Bishop Fobb listened to well over 1,000 voices of the laity in our diocese. And as Bishop Fobb compared what he heard from the laity to what he heard from the priest, there was an amazing synergy. There was a commonality, you might say, of what God was saying to him as he was beginning to listen to the people of our diocese. Here's some of those themes that emerged. Number one, our adults were hungry. And perhaps as you are watching this video, entering into the conversation, you know what that's like. We heard the hunger from our adults in lots of different ways. Some people said, I can't defend my faith. I have friends, brothers and sisters, a spouse, my own children who've left the Catholic faith for other non-Catholic Christian churches, and they're asking me questions, and I can't defend the faith. Other adults acknowledged that as they didn't learn what they wanted to learn earlier in life, they just reached a different season in life where they were asking questions about the Catholic faith and didn't know where to get the answers. In a variety of ways, in some very personal stories, we heard from adults in the pew that they were hungry to learn more. And it wasn't just the adults, it wasn't just the parents, but they also shared stories about our youth. We had some great things happening in our diocese, and still to this day do. But a lot of the laity described a hunger for, you might say, more. How can we better serve our youth? Again, on the shoulders of those who have given themselves generously to serve our youth, how is it that we can do an even better job at a critical stage of their life, at a critical stage in the history of the church? How can we do a better job in our parishes serving our young people? And for some of our parishes, that mission extends beyond, you might say, the traditional structures of youth ministry, but into our Catholic schools. And there emerged again a hunger from the people in our diocese to build on the tradition in our Catholic schools. Again, we've got a great history of Catholic education in our diocese. Many of you watching have benefited from that personally. But I think we can all agree that there is a hunger inside our youth today, and we have an unparalleled opportunity to strengthen our Catholic identity, building on the tradition, and improving our Catholic schools, not only with the Catholic identity and formation, but with all the other things that it takes to make great Catholic schools to serve the people in our diocese. We heard lots about Sunday, a hunger within people, and that's hunger is what brings them to Mass on Sunday. And so whether it is with more vibrant music or hospitality or a sense of community, or of course we have great priests and deacons who are doing the best they can to preach, but sometimes we heard from the laity that with that valiant effort, there isn't always a touching in their hearts, and a relevancy, you might say, to the circumstances of their lives. We heard lots about how is it that we can improve our experience of being with the Lord in the sacred tradition of our Sunday liturgies. We also heard a lot about the diocese, and we came face to face with the fact that for many people, perhaps even you as you're watching, the diocese is seen as an institution rather than a people. It's an it rather than a us, you might say. The diocese seemed to be a regulatory agency that told parishes what they could or could not do, rather than all of us together, working together, and the bishop himself and the team around him supporting what's happening in the diocese as across all of our parishes. That meant that the pastoral center, which was already doing great work, sometimes felt a disconnect between what they were doing so valiantly and with great passion with what was being received in the parishes. And sometimes the parishes felt like there was a disconnect between what they were doing and what was happening in the pastoral center. We had great people on both sides of the equation, but how can we bridge the gap so that we're all working together to the same end and inside the same mission? We also heard that we had opportunities with stewardship to help the people in our diocese see their place in the church and help them know how they can respond so that we have a strong, not only financial future for our diocese, but also helping people now know how they can respond to what God's doing in their lives. And in that response, we heard lots of different themes about outreach, whether it's the beautiful, strong foundation we have with Catholic Charities in our diocese, or the amazing ways that we have come together in the past in hurricane relief. All of that kind of under the banner, you might say, of outreach. We heard these themes in lots of different ways, and we heard other themes than these, but these were the ones that rose to the surface, you might say, most frequently. It was sometimes in different stories and sometimes in different words, but we were able to, you might say, organize what we heard within these themes from the listening sessions that we heard from the laity and that we heard from the priests. Why is it that our strategic plan is moving in the direction it's moving? It's because this is what we heard from people. This is what we heard from priests, and we wanted to respond. And part of that response was rolling up our sleeves and working together so that we could come up with a plan that would not only honor what we heard, but honor what's working across the country. We developed these super committees, you might say, these commissions. There were 13 commissions in all that each were tasked with a specific, you might say, topic that they were going to focus on. So one of our commissions was adult formation, and one of our commissions was youth formation. One of our commissions was diocesan governance, which helped our pastoral center understand how it is connected to the mission of the parishes. These 13 commissions were comprised of, believe it or not, over 500 lay leaders rolled up their sleeves with us, hand in hand, so that we could come up with solutions. As you listen to the story of what God's doing in our diocese, this is one of the miracles that I am most thankful for us to be in the trenches, standing shoulder to shoulder with over 500 lay leaders, some of whom were there throughout the entire process, some of whom started at key parts and contributed with key insights. Whether those lay leaders were there for the entire 9 months of planning or for key aspects of it, we would not be where we are today without the contribution from our lay leaders who helped us understand not only where they are, but what's working across the country. It was our lay leaders who helped us kind of look at the other places of the country who were responding to similar themes so that we weren't, you might say, recreating the wheel, you might say, but learning from what's working now. So much of planning is not just listening to people, but developing something that we know is going to work because it's being proven to work in other places. And that's one of the things that excites me about what you're going to hear about in our strategic plan, is that it's not just wishful thinking, but it's grounded in what we know is working in other places across the country. And these commissions were also grounded in listening to God Himself. There was a discipline of discernment within the commissions. And when we talk about receiving the plan from God, that's not just something that we say with you because we're hoping that God blesses our efforts. No, it's something that we actually receive from God. Throughout the whole entire process, there was a discipline of discernment. There were meetings where we stopped right in the middle and prayed a rosary together. And at the end of each decade, we just listened to what God was saying to us. There was time in the commissions that before we talked about what we were going to do, we actually formed those on the commissions to listen to God with some spiritual formation before we got work with the business of strategic planning. What makes our plan unique is that we listen to God and what God wanted to say to us through the process. It wasn't simply best practices, and although we did a lot of research, we also did a lot of praying, listening to what God wanted us to do. so that God could show us how we could tailor the plan to the people of our diocese, that God could tell us when to do it and how to unfold it. We received in the discipline of discernment more than we could have ever received if we were just doing things on our own, following a business model. And finally, we drafted a plan. We put some pen to paper. After listening to what we thought God was saying to us, we set some diocesan goals so that our diocese could move forward together. It started with the listening sessions. We listened to our priests for an entire year. We listened to the laity for 6 months. We spent 9 months after that in these commissions, which was imbued with a discipline of discernment. And from that, we were able to put some things on paper that will offer our diocese a direction as we move forward, not only as, you might say, individual parishes tailoring at, but all of our parishes together in this together. And it's because of the process we followed in conceiving the plan that we're confident that that same process will guide us as we tailor the plan to our individual parishes. At the heart of the strategic plan is the renewal of our parishes. That comes from the heart of Bishop Fobb, which he received from the heart of God, and which I think resonates with our hearts, because it's in our parishes that we ultimately live and pray and work side by side together. It's in our parishes that we will experience the most profound growth. There's no renewal of the church without the renewal of the parishes. And if we are going to grow as a diocese together, we need to tailor the plan to our parishes themselves. After we went through an entire process of developing goals for the diocese, we then shifted our attention to really working with the parishes themselves. And that wasn't just on a corporate or global basis. That began with implementation teams. The first step, you might say, after we put pen to paper and we polished our diocesan goals for all the dioceses, we spent over a year forming teams around pastors that would be there to help him in the implementation of a plan for his parish. Bishop Fobb said throughout the entire planning process that rather than having one strategic plan, there would really be 38 strategic plans, because there are 38 parishes in our diocese. We all share a common mission to make disciples. We all share a common desire for the renewal of our parishes. But the way that unfolds within the unique personalities of our parishes is going to be unique because of the unique personalities of our parishes. How we implement the plan needs to be tailored to the parishes themselves. Implementation teams were formed, a group of in between 6 to 10 people around the pastor to help the pastor listen to the voice of God and discern how to implement the plan in the parish, as well as to provide a group of people around the pastor that could help him, you might say, do some of the implementing of the organization of the plan itself. These implementation teams were tasked primarily to help the pastor discern, to hear the voice of God, so that what was working and bearing so much fruit on a diocesan level would begin to work and bear fruit on a parish level. Again, it's the key of discernment that really led to the development of the diocesan plan. And we really wanted a group of people around the pastor that could help him listen to the voice of God and pray. These implementation teams were trained and formed over a year. Before we got busy with writing goals and objectives, we spent a whole year in formation. Why? Because we wanted God to guide the parishes as they came up with something that they could be confident came from God and would serve the people in their parishes. It wasn't just our implementation teams that were working with our parishes. It was also a team of liaisons. We had a team of priests and laity that were working side by side. And each parish was assigned one person from the strategic planning team from the pastoral center to walk them through step by step how to navigate the developing of a team, the organizing of a team, and laying a foundation that would be necessary when they actually would begin to write their strategic plan. Liaisons spent time with pastors one-on-one, getting to know them, listening to their hearts. Liaisons spent time with the implementation teams, helping them understand some of the nuances and the subtleties of discernment, and helping them understand the mission that was drawing us all together of making disciples. There was also the new horizon of adult formation that the liaisons helped the implementations teams understand the importance of, and some of the best practices that were working across the country that we could bring to our parishes. Together, the liaisons, one person assigned to each parish, working with the implementation teams, a team of 6 to 10 people surrounding the pastor, came together. And after a year of formation and discernment and praying together and tilling the soils, they replicated on a parish level what we did on a diocesan level. There was a series of listening sessions in most of our parishes to listen to the parishioners. There was the application of the best practices that we were able to research on a diocesan level, and applying those best practices to what we heard from the parishioners on a parish level. Eventually, the parishes were able to develop goals for themselves. Now, the diocese had already identified 3 priorities that we needed to focus on: forming adults and youth, we needed to focus on Sunday, and we needed to focus on outreach. And the diocese was ready and perched to respond to help them from the pastoral center with those 3 priorities: formation, Sunday, and outreach. The parishes then, in turn, set goals of how they were going to implement that in their parishes, listening to the feedback they heard from the parishioners in the listening sessions. You might say the strategic plan took a face in the parishes with these goals. So in summary, we were able to tailor the plan in the parishes by forming implementation teams and investing in their formation through the work of the liaisons who were there to assist the teams in the parishes in the crafting of goals that were tailored to the specific needs of the parish. In this process, we were able to take what Bishop Fobb had set out for all the parishes and tailor it to the unique needs and how God is going to lead parishes to implement the mission of making disciples within their own unique parish. Of course, it's one thing to have a plan, it's another thing to implement a plan. And as we find ourselves together in this conversation, I'd like to share with you how our diocese together, all of our parishes together, our parishes working in concert with our pastoral center, is going to come together and implement plans of hope, a plan for the Diocese of Houma-Thibodaux to form disciples and help us all grow in our relationship with God. The diocese has articulated some planning priorities, and through the process of listening to the priests as well as the people in our diocese, some themes emerged. And from those themes, you might say the most important themes emerged. The first thing that emerged was Sunday, that we could have an opportunity to take another step in increasing the quality of our liturgical music, our hospitality, of our preaching. We have received this beautiful thing called liturgy from the Lord that doesn't need to be changed at all. But because it's so sacred and so is He who is giving us this beautiful thing called the liturgy, we can execute it as best as possible. The diocese, all together, all of us, Bishop Fobb asked us to focus on Sunday because that's where the people who go to Mass on Sunday, well, they all go to Mass on Sunday. And we can all come together as a community and celebrate the best that we possibly can. The second priority that emerged was formation. Now, I know that when some of us hear the word formation, you might automatically be thinking about seminarians. And we have a great tradition in our diocese with the men that are in the seminary now, with those who have gone before them who are ordained priests. But actually, we're all called to be formed as disciples. In fact, that's what we see as the mission from Jesus Christ in Matthew 28. He gave us a mission that we were to make disciples. We were to form people in our parishes to be disciples. That's what Jesus did, and that's what He asked us to do on His behalf. Of course, we form disciples in age-appropriate ways. And so our adults are formed as disciples in circumstances and language with examples and with structures that are helpful for them. And our youth are formed as disciples with resources and examples and structures that are appropriate for them. Whether it be adult formation, which has not always gotten a lot of attention in our diocese as such, or whether it be youth formation happening in what we would traditionally call CCD or youth ministry or youth groups, or whether it's in our Catholic schools. Forming people is what Bishop Fobb has asked us to focus on, to form our adults or our youth as disciples, regardless of the structures that we use in order to facilitate that formation. And then finally, if we're going to grow in our relationship with God, we need to respond to the person of Jesus Christ in our life. Whether that's looking at our marriages as our primary, you might say, mission field, whether it's being the best husband or wife or mother and father that we can possibly be, whether that's living in a relationship with Jesus Christ every day and responding in some traditional ways as parish social ministry or in other forms, we need to respond to God in what we labeled as outreach. The diocese articulated 3 planning priorities that we were together wanting our parishes to implement a strategic plan in their parish that would allow Sunday to be enhanced, that would allow adults and youth to grow in their identity as a disciple, and that would allow us all to respond to God with ease so that our relationship with God can continue to flourish. The implementation of the strategic plan is going to look different parish to parish. The way that one parish will address Sunday or formation or outreach might look a little bit different than what the neighboring parish is going to do. The Pastoral Center is poised to support these 3 important initiatives, but the way that it looks in our parish is going to look different because the people, the resources, the leadership, the personalities of our parish are so unique and beautiful that way. So as we have said from the very beginning, we wouldn't have one strategic plan. We would have 38 because we have 38 different parishes. But within each of those parishes, tailored in a unique way, there will be some form of growth around Sunday formation and or outreach. We look forward to what's going to happen in your life, and if you have any questions about what your parish is doing, I invite you to talk to your pastor, or perhaps if you know others who were involved in the developing of the strategic plan, you can speak to them. In summary, as we look at implementing the plan, it's going to look in the parishes different parish to parish as they respond to Sunday, forming adults and youth as disciples, as well as allowing you to respond to God in different forms of outreach. Part of being a good steward of the plan that God has given the Diocese of Houma-Thibodaux is not just tailoring goals and objectives, you might say plans for our parishes, but supporting our parishes so that they succeed. The mission of Jesus Christ to make disciples, which is what the goals on our parishes are designed to do, is so important that we're all in this together. And the Pastoral Center wants to support our parishes in succeeding in the goals that they have set for themselves so that they can make disciples in our parishes. It's exciting to see the way that our parishes have tailored their own unique plans to their circumstances and the people. And it's exciting to see our Pastoral Center continuing to come together to support that plan. And with that, we are excited to introduce to you, perhaps for the first time, if you're hearing about this, the Office of Parish Support, which is designed to do just that, support our parishes in the implementation of their plan that they crafted for their parish to make disciples in their parish. We're really excited about what God is doing in the parishes, and we're really excited to support that. And this is how it all kind of came to be. We are familiar with the great work that has been happening in our Pastoral Center for years now, not only across the board, but specifically within offices that specifically touched unique ministries in parishes, like our Office of Youth Ministry, our Office of Religious Education, the Office of Family Ministries. Each of these offices carried a charism, a mission to help our parishes within the unique discipline of youth ministry or religious education or family ministries. And in the history of our diocese, great things have happened from the great leaders that served in those offices. As we were in the trenches with our parish leaders during the development of the strategic plan, what we heard from our parish leaders was that the one-on-one mentoring within the parishes through the liaisons was really, really helpful. Those liaisons that were on the ground with the parishes to develop their own strategic plan were formed by our office in strategic planning to be, you might say, knowledgeable enough to answer questions about youth ministry or religious education or family ministry or a variety of other things that are essential to form a disciple. And so what we decided to do was to harness the energy of the one-on-one support. And instead of having offices that were focused on a particular discipline, youth ministry, religious education, or family ministry, to have an office that was focused on the parish itself, implementing all that is necessary for a successful strategic plan on a parish level. So instead of looking at pastoral center support through the lens of a particular discipline, youth ministry, religious education, family ministry, what would it look like if we had a diocesan office that was specifically designed in its architecture for the parish and all that the parish needs to support the parish leaders, to support the pastors, not just in a particular discipline, but in the parish as a whole. The Office of Parish Support is offering that support in three primary ways, and I'll give you a couple examples of that. First, we provide mentoring, the liaison structure that works so well in the development of the strategic plan now has a more concrete home inside the Office of Parish Support. And as we are going to eventually grow into a full-size team of liaisons, we're starting with the group that we have now to offer some one-on-one attention to our parish leaders, to our pastors, to the staffs in our parishes, and to the lay leaders who are coming to the surface to implement the strategic plan in the parish level. That one-on-one support is invaluable to what God is going to do if we're going to succeed in our parishes. And our team of liaisons are able to answer questions on a parish level about all of the things that would be necessary for that parish to succeed. So a liaison in the Office of Parish Support offering mentoring would be able to answer questions about youth formation and adult formation and Sunday and outreach, all of the diocesan planning's priorities. So you might say, we have been able to make a modification, an adjustment, new wineskins, you might say, for the new wine, where our liaison team is focused and specializing in the parish as a whole, and it's able to answer questions within each of those disciplines. Let's look at it this way. Imagine that you had a liaison, let's just call him Adam, a fictitious name, and Adam is at St. Agnes Parish, another fictitious parish. And Adam is working with that parish on a one-on-one level. And Adam is recognizing that that parish is facing a couple of particular issues. Now, Adam is also a liaison to the neighboring parish. And as Adam is working one-on-one with the neighboring parish, he recognizes that they have the same questions and issues. In the past, our parishes were being served in these individual disciplines, and great things were happening within the disciplines of youth ministry or family ministry or religious education. Now, with the more tailored one-on-one approach, Adam, the fictitious liaison, is able to help the parishes talk to each other. Imagine if parishes were supporting not only what was happening in their parish, but they were sharing resources, if we were able to talk to each other. Now, so many times what happens in our parishes is great things are happening, but we don't know what's happening in our neighboring parishes. Well, with the liaison approach, with liaisons specifically assigned to groups of parishes, parishes are able to share resources, talk to each other, brainstorm together, and grow not only more effectively and fruitfully on their own, but also together as a whole. This mentoring is an essential piece of how the Office of Parish Support can help. Not only do we need good mentoring, but we also need good resources. Resources like the one you're watching. Resources like The Art of Living, which is being produced by the Office of Parish Support. Whether it's training videos or actually resources that will help people grow in their relationship with Jesus Christ and their identity as a disciple, the resources are necessary to help our parishes stay focused on the best practices, the things that we know are working in parishes. And if we're all in this together, and imagine if we're all sharing resources together, imagine you can go to the grocery store now and the person that you know in a neighboring parish is using the same resource that you're using, and conversations can unfold together because we're all kind of in this together using resources together. Those resources produced by people of our diocese who know our stories and who know our particular culture, helping all of us grow as disciples within the unique history we have. The Office of Parish Support offers one-on-one mentoring. We provide resources and we provide training for the new volunteers that are stepping up. God is raising up in our midst right now a new generation of lay leaders who are responding to His call, who want to help with youth formation, who want to help with adults formation in our parishes or outreach in our parishes. Can it describe to you the number of people who in the last couple of years have been touched by God and who are asking questions about how can they help? In the past, we've had training for them to some degree, but we want to take that a step further to honor their generosity. And what the Office of Parish Support can do as we move forward together is training not only on a diocesan level, but on a more personalized parish level or even individual level, using not only the resources that we have had in the past, like a face-to-face large group gathering, but the use of technology like this so that we can tailor formation to the learning styles of those who God is calling forward. So the Office of Parish Support supports our parishes with mentoring, resources, and training so that we're all working together and that we're now focused on the parish succeeding rather than individual disciplines succeeding. And if we do that, working together, then there are great things in store for our parishes as we all succeed in what God is doing in our parishes. The heart of what God is doing in our diocese is really focused on the hearts of those who are in our diocese. It's us, it's me and you together. We're all in this together. And what God wants to do in all of our lives starts with our hearts, our relationship with Him. If you want to boil down our strategic plan into one thing, it is essentially the renewal of parish life. It's in our parishes that we live with each other and we pray with each other. It's there that we are formed together. And there is no renewal of the church or a diocese without the renewal of parish life. The heart of the plan is your parish. Lots of folks have asked, well, why is it that we don't see more happening on a diocesan level with the strategic plan? That's because we're on the ground in your parish. And a lot of what we've been doing is behind the scenes so that we can have more of a fruitful impact in the parishes themselves. And the heart of what we want to do in our parishes is respond to God and the mission to make disciples. Jesus Christ Himself has given us a mission. He gave that to us in Matthew chapter 28, where after He rose from the dead and before He ascended to the Father, He looked at His followers and He said, now go. Here's the mission. And make disciples of all nations, teaching them to observe all that I've commanded you. He asked us to make disciples. That's the mission that we've been entrusted with. To grow in holiness ourselves, you might say to learn from what He has taught us to do, to live like Jesus Christ and help other people do that. That's the mission that we've been entrusted with. And it is, I think, the most important mission in the entire world. And if that's why you're watching, if that's what you're hungry for, we're excited to invite you into the heart of our strategic plan, which is to make disciples. Now, I know that for a lot of us in the Catholic Church, the word disciple is not a word that we often use. I've often heard people, as they have listened to the strategic plan, kind of grapple with that word, and that's okay. Just know that that's the mission that He gave us. And rather than come up with another mission that's more familiar to us, the invitation is for us to align ourselves with His mission. And if we can grow together in learning about that mission, then that not only excites me, but that excites God Himself, because that's what He's called us to do, to make disciples. And that starts with formation. That starts with, how is it that we can help people in the pew, in our parishes, through our parishes, grow in their identity as a disciple, to learn more about the Word, to learn more about what it means, and to learn more about how is it that we can follow Him more closely. The heart of the plan is to not only make disciples, but you might say that comes alive in parishes in forming adults to be disciples. Of course, we know that forming disciples it happens on an age-appropriate level. So sometimes it happens with adults and sometimes it happens with youth. But even if we look at the future of youth formation in our diocese, we need healthy adults to work with them and to mentor them. So the heart of the plan is the renewal of parishes, and inside that heart, it's making disciples. And inside that heart, it's forming people to be a disciple. And inside that heart, it's small groups, where we believe, as we look at what's working across the country, that people are most successfully and fruitfully formed as a disciple in small groups. Now again, for some of us, just like the word disciple may not be as readily accessible in a history, so as small groups. Maybe that's not something that you have been accustomed to. But what we do see is that what's working across the country for adults to grow as a disciple is when they're engaged in small group in relationship with people. Now, let me just say this. I am a son of the Diocese of Houma-Thibodaux. And while the word disciple may not be on our tongue all the time and small groups may not be in a history, what I do know is that we know each other. We are a culture of relationship. We love each other and we support each other. And all small groups do is facilitate relationship. So what we are presenting in the strategic plan is a way that we can be at our best and use the gifts that God has already given us as a Cajun people, a people in our diocese who already thrive in relationships, to take those relationships inside a setting where we can grow in our relationship with Him. That's what small groups do. They help us grow in formation as we grow as disciples. We also see the heart of the plan being a renewal on Sunday. It's our hope that in your parish, you can experience the power of God in all that He has already given to us on Sunday. The power of the Word of God proclaimed in the Eucharist, the community that's gathered there. God has given us something so sacred and beautiful in the liturgy that it's our preparation for and our execution of what He has given us that can transform our lives. I can't imagine anything that is more central to parish life than celebrating on Sunday together. And if the heart of the plan is to renew parish life, then that somehow has to touch the thing that we all do together on Sunday, which is go to Mass on Sunday. But we can't leave it there. And so you might say the heart of the plan also sends us out of ourselves into our homes and families, into our workplaces, into responding to the needs that are around us. The heart of the plan is a renewal of our parish. And some of the practical ways that we're going to do that together is making disciples through good formation in the parish of our adults, which you will begin to see an invitation for that to happen within small groups. There'll also be lots of energy and attention and resources around improving Sunday and ways to help us appreciate our call to respond in our homes and families and parish social ministry and to the needs that are out there in the church today. And if we do that, then we will see God renew our parishes. We'll see Him renew the heart of our diocese, which is the hearts of people like you and me together on the journey. It's been a joy being with you in the conversation today. And if you'd like to learn more about the resources that are available or about other ways that you can intercede for our strategic plan, ways that you can get involved with the strategic plan, or ways that that strategic plan might impact your parish, I invite you to join us on our diocesan website, www.htdiocese.org/OPS. That's Office of Parish Support. You can also find us on the buttons on the home page, but however it is that we can serve you, that's what we want to do, serve you, support our parish as well. It's been a joy to be with you in this conversation, hoping that you're learning more about the strategic plan. The most important thing is that we cooperate with God along the way. And so I would invite you to pray for all of us, your parishes, and those of us in the Pastoral Center who support our parishes, that together we might allow God to renew our parishes, that we might cooperate with what God is doing in our diocese, and that we might all together grow in our identity as disciples of Jesus Christ. God bless you.